This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Am I crazy, or is some common sense being used in Washington? Smart money's on crazy. Also, we visit with Cumberland County's best and brightest, Leroy Scott. And since when does January come in like a lamb? All that and more next on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. Well, I hope everyone had a chance to dry off before the cold came. The good news is we got some much needed moisture. The bad news is a lot of it ended up in the ditches. I know driving to work this week, I've seen something I haven't seen in a long time: standing water in fields. I hope this is the last we've seen of the drought conditions for a long time. And speaking of long times, it's been a long time since we were supposed to have a new farm bill in place. So I contacted our friend Adam Nielsen of the Illinois Farm Bureau to get an update on that and other issues. With me now is Adam Nielsen. He's the National Legislative Director for the Illinois Farm Bureau, and he's our eyes and ears on what's going on in Washington on issues that are important to all of us, I think. So Adam, count me as one of the people that was expecting the dairy price cliff to get us all in line and have the farm bill to skate through. I was wrong.
Well, yeah, I would have liked to have been there with you, but I think the week before it was pretty clear that some really intense negotiations to try to do that, to try to get a 5-year bill in there, were focused between the House and the Senate Agriculture Committee leadership, and I believe Secretary Vilsack was part of those discussions as well. And they, got hung up on the commodity program in terms of, the dollars that would be available there and what would it look like. And as you know, the Senate bill and the House bill were different. So I don't think they were able to bridge the differences in that short period of time. Then it became clear that an extension was the only alternative. And then you heard a lot of the stories about the dairy cliff and milk prices doubling and so forth, and nobody wanted to see that happen.
Right.
We had resigned ourselves to the fact that an extension was going to be included in this bill for how long, who knew, and that the milk issue would be addressed, and it was. Not particularly to our liking or to any of the milk groups' liking, but it was addressed, and so consumers did not have to pay twice as much for milk, which is a good thing.
Now, one of the things that we have to look forward to is the possibility of sequestration in the budgets. How is that going to affect programs that we're interested in?
Well, we're going to try to get sequestration, use that as a vehicle, maybe to get a farm bill passed, a 5-year bill, just as we did with the super committee, which didn't result in anything, and this last-minute gasp here at the end of last year. Sequestration, of course, is going to cut the Defense Department and discretionary programs. Half of the cuts will be in defense, about $55 billion. The other $55 billion in discretionary programs. Those are mostly operating funds for USDA and other government agencies. So they will definitely have an impact on the level of service that USDA can provide farmers and others throughout the country. So we're concerned about that. We also know that Congress still is very interested in cutting programs and cutting spending. We have offered ourselves up now for the last year and a half for anywhere between $23 billion and $35 billion over 10 years in terms of savings. So there's the potential that Congress will decide that agriculture will be cut by X number of dollars, and that would be enshrined in that piece of legislation. And then the committees would go about going to work to try to arrive at a farm bill in both chambers that reflected that X number of dollars in savings. So that's a possibility, or we could just simply go from one extension to another indefinitely.
And nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Now, one of the issues that comes up when reading about the House's concerns about the Farm Bill is the SNAP program and food stamps. And would eliminating those programs make the bill more likely to pass or less likely to pass?
Well, I think nobody's talking about eliminating the programs. We're talking about 4 out of every $5 that goes into farm programs goes into the nutrition title. And the vast majority of that is for the SNAP program. The Senate's bill would have cut SNAP by $4 billion over a 10-year period. We're talking about an $80 billion a year budget. So the cuts in the Senate were roughly $400 million.
Wow.
Or $400 billion. It was a tiny fraction of their overall annual budget. The House wanted cuts 3 times that size. They were looking at really changing eligibility and making sure that people who participate in this program, now 47.5 million Americans in those families, that they had qualified on the basis of assets, income, money in the bank, investment instruments, vehicles, and so forth. A lot of that had gone by the wayside in recent years as we fell into the depth of a very big recession, and more people came on the rolls. They waived some of those requirements. They wanted to get a handle on them again. So you had very minimal cuts versus what would be considered to be pretty significant. My sense is that when we were talking about maybe a 5-year deal at the end of last year, the two sides were very close. They would have maybe struck the difference.
Cut the difference,
Cut the difference between 4 and 16, and it would have been somewhere around 10. And I think everybody might have been satisfied with that. But that is something that is going to be discussed. Our position is that in any $80 billion a year budget, there's probably administrative costs that you can save. And so that's where we've let others really talk about the meat and potatoes of that issue. And we've suggested, maybe some administrative savings are possible there without getting into that
without cutting the meat.
Yes, exactly. It's been a big part of the Farm Bill. It's an even bigger part of the Farm Bill today, but politically, we need to have a good partnership between rural legislators and urban legislators on the farm.
Right. Another issue we've been following is the Mississippi River. Understand Senator Durbin was instrumental in coordinating some of the efforts. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, very much so. It was very clear to us early last November that we were headed toward a real critical situation where we may not have the Mississippi River between St. Louis and Cairo for an extended period of time. It was Aaron Schock in the House that got a lot of signatures on a letter, and Senator Durbin's efforts with some of his colleagues in the Senate that really got this issue moving. Both governors in Missouri and Illinois, Nixon and Quinn, were very instrumental in getting us to a solution. The Corps of Engineers was reluctant to expedite the rock pinnacle removal, but when the political pressure was applied, then
amazing how it happened, right?
They saw that it was possible to do, which is good, right. And so the rock pinnacles have been removed. We've created another 2 feet of draft on the river in that area, and we just have to make sure that it continues to rain so navigation can continue. No one of the locks up the river has been scheduled for renovations, and that's good to have the locks renovated, and that will have an impact on traffic. But we were really concerned that we would lose the Mississippi River at a very critical time for agriculture, both with inputs coming up the river and in terms of fertilizer and so forth, and this is our window of opportunity to feed export markets. Once the South American harvest begins in earnest, then other countries are getting their exports from South America. So if we would have cut off the river, we would have cut off 2 very good months of export sales.
Now, one more thing Senator Durbin has been involved with. He was part of the bipartisan committee in the Senate that introduced a potential immigration compromise. And President Obama addressed immigration in his inaugural address. Can you talk about immigration and the Farm Bureau's interest in that?
Yeah, it's very clear that the system is broken, and attempts to try to get any kind of comprehensive immigration reform has been nearly impossible. But the stars are aligned this year. The Republicans are motivated to do something. The Democrats are motivated to do something. So I think we're going to see a comprehensive bill, and it was very good to see Senator Durbin working bipartisanly with other of his Senate colleagues, came up with a plan that touches on several areas that we're very interested in. Agriculture needs a stable legal workforce.
Right.
There are big segments of agriculture that will rely heavily on workers who are largely undocumented. Our members are not allowed to ask those questions. They end up in court when they ask, are you legal or not? If they're presented documentation that indicates they're legal, they have to accept that. Otherwise, again, they end up in court. E-Verify was something that has started to be implemented in various states, which is the automatic verification of somebody's legal status. Where that came into play in some states, you had a lack of labor showing up for those jobs. So we need to have a national solution. We don't want to import all of our produce. We don't want to import all of our dairy and our pork. And so we need folks who are willing to work in these jobs, and we need a stable legal workforce. So what they're attempting to try to do in this bill is address all of the areas: border security, E-Verify, and then agriculture and other professions. So what we're pushing for is an agricultural visa. Workers could be either employed at will or on a contract basis, would have to return to the home country for a period of time and reapply. But the system that's in place that runs through the Department of Labor, the H-2A program, has only worked for very small segments of agriculture in some regions. And we've really seen this come to a head in recent years, where ag employers are unable to find the workers that they need to get those crops out of the ground at the time they need it. So we have a very strong interest in seeing something happen as soon as possible on immigration.
Let's hope so. Adam Nielsen, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back in touch with you really soon.
Very good, Fred. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Monica Becker is here now with a look back, a look forward, and maybe a nasty look for me. Monica?
Thanks, Fred. And I'm Monica Becker. So 2012 has turned into the year that just won't go away, at least for now. The NASS released the annual Illinois crop summary for 2012, and it looks like we planted more and got less. Surprised? I didn't think so. Over 12.8 million acres were planted with corn in 2012, up 200,000 acres from the previous 2 years. But yields were only 105 bushels per acre, down from the 157 bushels in 2011. Soybean acreage was reported at slightly over 9 million acres, which is pretty much what Illinois averages per year. But yield per acre dropped to 43 bushels per acre, down 4.5 bushels in 2011 and down 8.5 bushels from 2010. The only thing that went up was land values and cash rents. The average value of a farm in Illinois increased by 17.5% to $6,700 per acre. Cash rented land averaged $212 per acre in 2012, $29 higher than the previous year. After the rain this week, you might find it odd that we're even mentioning the drought. But while we've been getting adequate rainfall, the further west you go, the more severe the groundwater problem becomes. Western Iowa is still in extreme drought status, while the entire state is listed as severe drought. Around here, not so much. East Central Illinois is officially out of drought status as is the entire state of Indiana. The rains of December and January have recharged the soil to a depth that farmers will need for spring planting. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says that last winter we were in a La Niña pattern, which predicts a summer drought. This year, normal weather patterns. We're keeping our fingers crossed. And if you're worried that some of your ground might get too wet, the NRCS is accepting applications for the Wetland Reserve Program now through March 1st. The WRP is a voluntary program that allows landowners to protect, restore, and enhance wetlands on their property. To be considered, the applicants must have farm records established with the Farm Service Agency. For more information, contact the local USDA Service Center. And finally, the USDA published a story that might blow you away. It found that poultry producers can reduce bacterial cross-contamination in poultry cages by treating the cages with forced air that's been heated to 122 degrees. It turns out that a major cause of the cross-contamination of chickens is the bacteria present in their feces that can linger between cages, causing the birds transported the next time to become infected. Washing the cages doesn't eliminate the problem, but when hot flowing air was applied to the cages, the levels of bacteria declined significantly. All this so Fred can make me say, germs in chicken poop flew the coop when hot air begins to swoop. That, fortunately, is all for now. I'm Monica Becker. Thanks for watching.
Well, this week I have another crop guy into the studio. It's Leroy Scott from Cumberland County. And Leroy, thanks for coming. What you been up to this winter?
Well, wintertime, of course, is a time for refurbishing and working on equipment and getting tractors and planters and et cetera serviced and ready to go.
Waxed and polished, yes.
Yeah, waxed and polished, and all the oil change and the filters. and you know, you get this stuff out of the way, and if you have to wait on a part, it doesn't matter, you know, and you get everything done. And so we're about through that process.
Right. Now, last year, refresh our memory, you know, I'm sure you want to block out last year in your mind, but last year, if I remember correctly, you were the guys that started feeling the drought before the northern counties did.
We probably did. We had a great spring last year. I mean, in Cumberland County, we normally go to field the first part of May, and we were done by the middle of April with our corn, and then we had a little dry issues getting the beans up, but the beans, you know, was in at a good time and was able to do all of our work we needed, side dressing, anhydrous, dressing, et cetera. So we were feeling really good, you know, up until about the end of June, when we was counting on that traditional 4th of July rain. That was, you know, it's going to save us. Well, it didn't come.
Well, you know, and I thought there for a while you guys were going to be done with harvest by, you know, July,
Right.
the way things were going. But so you didn't get the rain, and I remember reading the numbers going, oh, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. At what point did things turn around for you?
Well, about the 1st of August, we got an inch of rain, and we was thinking, well, boy, maybe this will help the corn, but the corn was too far past.
Yeah.
But it did save the beans. We had a good bean crop, and you know, the year turned out pretty good in that respect. But the corn was just sort of a futile operation to drive the combine through it to process the corn stalks, like somebody said, you know.
Exactly.
And you know, we had a little bit of corn, but not much to speak of. I know north of here there was a lot of 40 to 100 bushel corn, or even better. I had one field made in the 90s, but I also had another field made 5 bushel the acre.
Wow.
And
hardly worth the diesel to run the tractor.
that's true, but I was at a meeting the other day, and I made a comment. I had some 5 bushel corn, and the guy sitting beside me said, well, I had some made 2. So
Everybody has it worse, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got, talking beforehand, you mentioned that you feel pretty good about the moisture level now, especially after last night's rain.
East Central Illinois is in pretty good shape moisture-wise. West Central Illinois is pretty dry, and then you get west of that, it's critical. And so it's kind of scary. If we do have a crop, it looks like we might have a decent crop, and then if we would, how do you try to market that if the drought hits out there? And so we may be looking at $5 corn if they get rain, or $4.50, and we may be looking at $7 corn if they are dry. So it's pretty tough to market right now.
So you guys are gamblers whether you know it or not.
That's true. It's pretty tough.
So what are you planning on doing this year? Now, you were heavy corn last year, right?
We were close. We stay pretty close to 50-50.
Okay, good. So you're going to rotate?
Right, because our soils is not conducive to corn on corn. It just doesn't work as well.
So you're going to rotate beans and corn and hope for the best.
Pretty much, pretty much, yeah.
So what are the farmers around you going to be doing?
I hear a lot of the same things. They've been burnt in the past on corn, and it just doesn't seem to work as well. Even friends I've got in Mattoon say, you know, corn on corn is not working out well even in the darker soils. And so there may be a lot of corn on corn, but it appears to me that in Cumberland County there's more 50-50.
And how much, I mean, I really don't know the answer to this question. How much prep work would it take? How much fertilizer would it take to do corn on corn in the field, your fields? Well,
you have to increase your P&K, of course, and then there's always roughly 50 pounds of nitrogen left over on soybeans, so you have to up your nitrogen cost. So you have a good deal more input on corn than you do on corn on beans.
So you're not going to take a chance with that. You're just going to take a chance with everything else you worry about with
there
farming,
you go.
Right?
There you go.
Okay. Well, Leroy, thank you. Leroy is going to be one of our crop guys again this year, at least if I don't insult him before this interview is over. So we'll be talking to him during the growing season, and good luck with growing season. And you know, let's have some rain this year. Okay.
There you go. Thanks a lot.
Thanks much.
Nice talking to you.
I've just about given up trying to figure out this weather. 60 degrees in January. Luckily, I have Cameron Craig to make sense of all this in Under the Four Rivers Skies.
2012 left us with warmer than normal temperatures and below average precipitation. January 2013 gave us a glimpse of what winter was like in 2011, cold spells and a return of the white stuff. The overall character of the month was a roller coaster ride of temperatures shifting from cold to warm and back again. Let's do the numbers. January's average temperature was recorded at 31.9 degrees, putting it 3.3 degrees above the 30-year average of 28.6 degrees. The total precipitation for the month was 3.40 inches, which was nearly an inch above the 30-year average. The month started cold, with temperatures dropping from a high of 35 degrees on the 1st to a low of 8 degrees on the 2nd. From the 3rd to the 12th, temperatures rose to a high of 62 degrees and then plummeted back to the lower 30s on the 14th. Temperatures once again increased from the 15th to the 19th, hitting a high in the mid-50s, then dropped back into the mid-30s from the 21st through the 27th. On the 29th, temperatures hit in the mid-60s as warm air moved in ahead of the first significant severe weather event of the year. Precipitation events began on the 9th of the month with 0.15 of an inch of rain. On the 12th, we received 0.83 inches of rain that later turned to snow. A dry period set in between the 14th and 26th. The next event recorded 0.32 inches of rain on the 27th and 28th. On the 30th, we received 2.09 inches from the significant severe weather event that ripped through the region, damaging electric lines and tearing roofs off barns and dwellings. The outlook for February's temperatures will be slightly below the 30-year average, and precipitation is expected to be near normal. As we get closer to the planting season, let's hope that more precipitation is received to give us a surplus, so that a repeat of last summer is not possible.
Well, that's it for this week. Before we go, I'm looking for an ag tech guru to help me figure out what are the latest tech trends in farming. If you know of someone, or you think you're all that in a bag of chips when it comes to the latest and the greatest, give me a yell at 581-7245 or cfperalta@eiu.edu. And while we're at it, remember to follow us on Twitter at 4RiversAg, no spaces. Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report. You know, on the Four Rivers Ag Report, we're always looking for news that is of interest to the agricultural and the rural communities. Every week we scour the local papers, the state and national websites. We talk to lots and lots of people every day looking for information that will help and or entertain you. There is one more way that we can find out the latest news, topics, trends, and events that are part of your life. You can tell us. We'd love to hear from you about what's going on in your town, on your farm, or even on your neighbor's farm. If you got a topic you'd like us to talk about, let us know. I probably won't know the answer, but I probably know people who do. Please let us know what is happening. You can call us at 217-581-7245. You can email us at weiu@weiu.net, or on Facebook at WEIU TV, Public Broadcast Station.
And if you tweet, we're on Twitter at 4 Rivers Ag.
So now that you got our number, don't be a stranger.